I am very excited to welcome a very special guest, Haley Knauer. I had to ask, right? Oh my God. I don't know if you have this, Haley, but I have other people name anxiety, even when I know them.
I absolutely have the same thing. Absolutely. I
Wait,
feel like it's such um it's such an embarrassment for me when I pronounce people's names wrong, and I freak myself out about it. So I always ask people, like, how do you pronounce your name? Am I saying it correctly? I
always,
feel the same.
always, always, always. So Haley has her BA from Temple, her MPH in nutrition from NYU. She is a board certified health coach from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, like me, baby,
Whoop,
and the
whoop.
National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching, and is currently enrolled in the School of Applied Functional Medicine. Thank you so much for being here, Haley. I'm so excited about this
Thank you for having
conversation.
me. I'm
I
so
want to
excited
jump
to chat
right
with you.
in. Yeah, me too. Me too. I would love to jump right in with your story because you and I
Yeah.
have not exactly similar, but you had an autoimmune journey as well. And I would love that informed your career and what you do. And I would
Mhm.
just love to jump right into sort of what brought you here today.
Yeah. So I was a really sick kid. And I remember I was thinking about this the other day. The main memory that I have of being a kid is that I was always missing my friends' birthday parties because I was always sick.
Mm, mm,
And so it was just like all the time. I had one thing or I had another thing. And so it started, when I was quite young, and continued. The symptoms got different. So as I got older, it was less of the like acute sickness and more of just chronic, not feeling well ever. So that's what I think about when I think about growing up. Like I just never really felt very well.
And
And
what
when
did that see? Just to be specific, like what did the not feeling
Mhm.
well? Was it fatigue? Was it stomach stuff? Was
Yep.
it?
So when I was little, like a kid, elementary school, and middle school, I would have like disgusting, but like uncontrollable vomiting. And
Mm,
I would just like get super sick to my stomach. I couldn't keep anything down. I feel like nothing is TMI on this podcast. So I would
no.
always have to go to the doctor and they would have to give me suppositories because that was the only way that they could
Mm.
get any medication into me. And so that's when I was little. And then when I got to be a
Wait,
teenager,
can I interrupt? Fun fact about
yeah.
me.
Ooh, go. Does
When
it
I
have to do
do
with
this,
vomiting?
oh no, my mom laughs that uh my first like sentence or my first like multi-syllabic word was suppository. And I was like, no suppository, because I had to have them so much as a child, like a small child,
Oh,
that like I
yeah.
viscerally remember the experience.
Yep.
But yeah, we joke that that was like my first big word.
Yep. And that sticks with you.
Oh yes,
You know?
it really does.
Yeah. Yep. I feel the exact same. I have very vivid, terrible memories of the suppositories.
Yep.
Yes. Unfortunately, I don't have to have them anymore.
Same.
Um,
Same.
just so you guys know.
We're good. We're good.
We're good. Um, yeah, and then the symptoms kind of evolved. When I got to be a teenager, I was super tired all the time. Like I was sleeping all the time. I just had no energy. And I also started to realize that my friends didn't feel like that. So when I
Mm,
would come home from high school, I would immediately have to take a nap every day. And I
wow. Wow.
realized that that wasn't normal, you
Hmm.
know? I also got really bad cystic acne.
Mm.
And so, being a teenager is hard anyway. And so when you're
Yeah.
super tired and you have acne all over, um, and you're not feeling well, it makes it much, much
Really
harder.
hard.
Uh, not a picnic. Also was having hair loss.
Hmm.
So I was pretty lucky actually in that, well, actually, let me back up. So I was having these symptoms when I was a teenager. And so obviously I also think we grew up with similar health conscious mothers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I actually grew up, eating tofu before tofu was a thing.
Mhm.
And I remember also being embarrassed going to school with like a tofu and sprout sandwich. And my
Yeah, yeah,
friends
yeah,
are
yeah.
like eating pizza. So my mom was really, with it. And she was like, this is not normal. I don't know what's going on. She was doing all the things she knew. Like
Mhm.
I still remember like cod liver oil, having to take
Wow.
spoonfuls of it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
she
yeah.
was doing
Oh,
all the things, you
yeah.
know, but nothing was working. And so we started to go to doctors, and
Hmm.
it was just this like catalog of doctor after doctor. Nobody could really figure out what was going on.
Yep.
But I remember they were all old white men. And
Mm.
that's what sticks out to me from that time. It was like another doctor. I was told nothing was wrong. I was told it's
Yep.
all in my head.
Yep.
Um, they kept giving me antibiotics, which
Mm.
now I like will run away from the antibiotic.
Yes.
And that's my last, case scenario. But at the time, it was just like, we don't know what's wrong. Here's another antibiotic. Um, until finally, I walked into a doctor's office, and she was, I remember her being very pretty.
Hmm.
And this is what sticks out to me. And I don't know if it has anything to do with she was the one that was able to diagnose me. But, I have this memory of walking into the office, and she's like, like just like this beautiful, beautiful woman. And she was this beautiful,
Halo.
yes, exactly. She was this beautiful Indian woman with this like long, gorgeous hair. And I walked into her office, and she takes one look at me, and she goes, "You have Hashimoto's." I mean, she didn't
Mm.
know anything. She didn't know my blood work. She didn't know anything.
And
And
will
I
you
remember,
explain for those who
mhm,
don't know what Hashimoto's is?
yep. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease. And basically, your body attacks itself. So, in any
Hmm.
autoimmune disease, your body is attacking itself. But with
Hmm.
Hashimoto's, it attacks your thyroid. And so, your thyroid is responsible for your energy, it's
Yep.
responsible for your hormones. So, my symptoms made sense.
Hmm.
I also had
Hmm.
really heavy periods.
Hmm.
So, my symptoms, when I look back, I'm like, how did all of these doctors not diagnose me? How did they
Right.
skip this?
Right.
Um, but Hashimoto's now and autoimmune diseases now are much more recognized. But at the
Yes.
time, I don't know. I don't know how everybody missed this. Um, but she didn't. And so she diagnosed me right away. And the thing with Hashimoto's is your thyroid function can swing. So it can
Hmm.
go from being hyper, which is overactive. So
Hmm.
you kind of feel, when you drink coffee on an empty stomach and you feel shaky?
Yep.
Hyperthyroid kind of feels like that all the time. And
Hmm.
you're just kind of like buzzing, and you don't really know what's happening. So it can swing from hyperactive to hypoactive, which is
Hmm.
underactive. So mine typically would be in the underactive range, which is why I was so tired.
Hmm.
Um, and the hair loss
Did
would
it affect your
happen.
weight at all
Yeah.
or no? Okay.
Um, I was never super heavy, but I was a little bit overweight. Like I was a little bit,
Hmm. Hmm.
we'll say, chubby.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking also like I was, a vegetarian because my mom was super healthy. Like
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
just didn't make sense. My weight
Yeah.
didn't make
Yes.
sense for what I was eating.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, and so, yeah. And so that was my kind of journey getting diagnosed. And then as soon as I was diagnosed, I remember feeling this like sense of relief, like, okay, at least we know what's going on.
Hmm.
Which was helpful. But I was put on, a classic thyroid medication, which is what they do now. I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
all the time, which
Hmm.
was fine. But I remember as a kid, like, again, I was in high school. I remember just thinking, there's got to be more of an answer than this, you
Mm.
know?
That's
And it's,
amazing at that age,
yeah,
even that you were like,
yeah.
there's something not right here.
No. And so, not that I'm against medication at all, and I'm thankful for it, but I just feel like I intuitively knew that
Yeah.
there was some other answer.
Yeah. Same for
Um,
me. I mean, I was
yeah,
probably 10 years older than you, but I was like at 26, 27, being like, there's got to be a better way. Like, this
right,
is
right,
not okay.
right. Yeah. Um, And so I was on the medication for a while, but I remember I just started like diving into anything that I feel like would be helpful. So
Hmm. Hmm.
my mom had these like old school nutrition books at home, so I'm like starting to read them. Um, and then when I got to college is when I really kind of dove into nutrition
Hmm.
and feeling like, could could I help myself by eating differently? What am
Mm.
I, how am I sleeping? And so I kind of dabbled and played around with doing different things
Hmm.
when I was in college, it was helpful, but it wasn't the answer still.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's impressive because in college I was like
yeah,
getting drunk and becoming bulimic and like being a terrorist to my own body. So I'm impressed that you like went to college. You're like, I'm gonna get healthier because I went to
yeah.
college and I'm like, I'm gonna start to take apart my entire body and become a problem.
I actually didn't drink in college.
Good for you. I'm just saying,
Uh,
good for you.
because I was just like I also was working and I was terrified of being hungover, but yeah, I was on this journey of, there's got to be something else. There's got to be an answer. Um, and so I also started having, I guess, like a reoccurrence of not so much vomiting, but like a lot of diarrhea, a lot of like GI
Mhm.
upset.
Yeah.
So I feel like my whole life I've just been going to doctors. And so I went to a gastroenterologist when I was in college, or maybe, yeah, I was like later in college. And he was like, "Oh, you have celiac, you can't eat gluten." And I remember standing in his office and I was like, "But what's gluten?" Like,
Yep.
it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
This was early 2000s.
Yep.
Um, and I was like, I don't even know what is that. And I think he just said bread, which clearly there's much more to it than that.
Right.
Um, and then it was after college. I was working in a totally different field than nutrition, but I decided to go to
Which was
IIN.
what? What were you doing?
I I was planning weddings for a major hotel chain.
Oh, amazing.
Uh huh.
Did you like
And
it or no?
no, I hated it. I hated it. I mean, the stories I could tell about weddings. Yeah, it was just not my thing.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, people are crazy. One of my
yeah,
best friends is in wedding planner in New York, and
hmm
when I was separating from my husband and kind of was like in like trying to have side jobs and stuff,
hmm
she would hire me, and it was like people are extra crazy. It's like worse than being at the airport.
it's like seeing everybody's worst side.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really, I mean, I was not into it. And that's when I decided that, when I get married, I will not, not do the wedding thing at all. That's actually, I've worked in weddings multiple times, actually, weirdly. But that was the first wedding experience. But I tried to get fired from that job.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was successful eventually,
Good.
but I
Good.
tried because my master plan was, okay, I really want to go to IIN, but I want to focus on it. How
Yeah.
can I, how can I make money when I go to school? What if I get fired from my job? And I literally that was my goal. I was like, I'm going to get fired and I will get unemployment. And that's how I'll pay for my life while I go to school.
And did that work?
It did. Yeah, it worked.
Oh my God, I
Um,
would have too much of a nice girl people pleaser pleasure in class. Like that would have been stressful. What did you do to get fired?
Oh gosh, all of the things. I started coming into work very late. I would take extra long lunch breaks. Just not doing my job. Just, people would want things. I would not answer the phone. I would
Yeah.
not answer emails. Um, Towards the end, which was, I'm sure, one of the last straws for them, I started painting my nails at my desk. And I worked in like an office with other people working. So I would just like whip out the nail polish, not answer the phone, and paint my nails. Um, and it did work. It took some
Wait,
months, but it,
that is such like bold. I don't like big dick energy as a statement anymore, but like I love that. You're like, I don't give a fuck. Like
I
I'm gonna
was
come
like,
here, they're gonna fire
no.
my ass. I'm gonna be a problem.
And yeah, and I remember when my manager came in, she asked like everyone else to leave the office. It was a morning, I remember, and she asked everybody else to leave, and she sits down next to me and pulls up a chair, and I knew, I was like, "This is
I
it.
did it.
This is it."
Accomplishment. Yes.
And she said, "I'm so sorry. We have to let you go. Blah blah blah." And she said, "Do you have any questions for me?" And my only question was, "Can I leave now, or do I have to work the rest of the day?" And I remember she just looked at me like, "What's wrong with this woman?" like, uh, and she said,
Mastermind.
yeah, I mean, it was genius. So it was, it was genius. So anyway, I got fired. I left right then. I went to IIN. I was collecting unemployment. And that's how I really got into nutrition.
I love that story so much. I love that story. So you're like, I don't care. This is my plan.
Yep.
And you did
Yep.
it. And you
I did it.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And from there, did you find, because like my healing journey was a little weirder, and actually such empathy. Like I was a very sensitive kid, but I was a mostly healthy kid, which is why it was really confusing when my body started to fall apart in like a major way. And like it really resonates when you look at your peers. And this is even in my mid-20s, where it's like, wait, how come you guys can do all the things and I can't? But as a kid, I feel like that'd be so much more heartbreaking, right? Because you almost don't understand, or maybe it feels like it's your fault or something. But I really got to a place, same thing, where a lot of white male doctors, and there was one like middle-aged white frumpy female doctor who all were like, I don't think there's anything wrong with you. Like, I don't know. And I remember finally finding a naturopath who was like young, again, glowing skin, beautiful hair, pretty, vibrant. And she was like, oh, we could do stuff with herbs. And she like, I had done this like microbiome protocol that I had found. Cause again, I was seeing all these specialists and everyone's like, it's in your head, or take this pill, or come back in a year when things get worse. And it's like, there's gotta be a better way. Right. And I remember finding her, cause I went to my regular GP, who was this like frumpy middle-aged lady who was like, all the shit you're doing is weird. I don't want to hear about your microbiome. I don't even know what that is. Like, this works for you. Don't talk about it in my office. Like, no. Because all of a sudden she was like, wait a minute, you're so much better. What happened? And I was like telling her, and she's like, no. I don't want to hear about it. And I was like, what? And I found a naturopath, and it was like, oh, I want medical advice from the person who looks healthy and is healthy versus a lot of the people. And I don't know about you, because I was in New York at the everyone looked like shit. Like it was like overworked, tired, grumpy, overweight people giving me advice or telling me I'm fine when I'm not. But then it was interesting because like someone, a nurse practitioner friend of mine, suggested IAN because for me, it was such a big, the mental health aspect of it was such a big part. And I had been dealing with it, and it did start in college for me because I was making such poor choices. But again, all of the choices of my peers, right?
Right.
But everyone could binge drink and not sleep and have stress and be fine. And all of a sudden I'm having anxiety and depression, and my body is doing all these weird things. And it was just interesting because going to IIN continued my healing journey. And it was one of the only places I could find at the time that actually looked at the mind-body connection. No one was doing that yet. So I was looking into like, more quote unquote legitimate like master's programs or something. No one was doing what I think. I'm very excited about what's out there now, right? People are really starting to connect this. But I was there and IIN is the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. That's where we both went. That was like your gateway drug. Well, I guess both are gateway drug into nutrition and wellness. But it was interesting because what was so great about it, and I'd love to hear your experience, was they do just expose you to a lot of different ideas and theories. And you end up trying a lot of stuff. So not only like did I probably heal my body about 80% when I got there, I started healing even, I didn't realize I was still, because I had bulimia that I developed in college, which again, I learned at IIN that like gluten causes binge eating
Yep.
in some people. And I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's me. And I'm gluten
Mm-hmm.
intolerant. I didn't know that, I mean, all of that stuff
Mm-hmm.
where not only I thought I had a handle on it because I
Right.
wasn't like active as much as I was in my early 20s. But even then I was like starting to realize, ooh, orthorexia and all of these other things that
Mm-hmm.
I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
where even that program not only gave me the tools to help other people, but healed my body further.
Yeah. I feel the same. And I love IAN and I'm happy I went there. And I, one of the reasons why I love it, in addition to really making the connection that you can't separate your mind from your body. Like
Yes.
it's impossible. We can't only look at the body without looking at the mind.
Yes.
So I loved that, but I also really loved, like you said, that they didn't necessarily prescribe like one way of eating or healing. It was like,
Yeah.
here's all of these different things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did all of them. It sounds like you did too. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Tried them all.
exactly. And it made me, I'm really thankful for that experience because, when we were learning about the raw food diet, I was only eating raw foods. When we were,
Mm-hmm.
learning about veganism, I was only eating vegan food. So and it was eye opening to really be in a place where I could connect with my body and understand like, oh, this is how I feel when I'm eating this way. This is how I
Yep.
feel when I'm eating this way. But the conclusion for me was that none of those specific ways were my answer. And
Mm-hmm.
I had, a combination of them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I approach nutrition now. Like we all
Yeah.
have a combination of them,
Mm-hmm.
and people ask me like, what's the best diet? The one that works for you. Like
Yes.
there is no
Yep.
best diet,
Yep.
and so I grew up a vegetarian, which I actually think contributed to my not feeling well.
Yep.
Because I do really well with some animal products in my diet,
Yep.
which
Yep.
I've learned through IIN, and so it's
Yep.
kind of like other people are great vegetarians.
Yep.
So I think that there's no answer, which is frustrating, but also really freeing,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of you get to figure out what works for you. How exciting is that?
Right. And you're the one who knows. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
like. I really liked that it was always root cause, right? Go
Yep.
underneath, ask more questions,
Mm-hmm.
ask more questions. And the one thing I talk about here,
Mm-hmm.
and I talk about a lot with my clients still, and I really, the idea that your body will heal itself by itself when given the opportunity.
Yep.
And I just liked how empowering it was. And
Mm-hmm.
then I still, to this day, the idea of primary and secondary foods,
Mm-hmm.
because that
Yep.
was the thing that got me in, because I
Mm-hmm.
had such fluctuation in my weight. I'm such a highly sensitive person. And looking back,
Mm-hmm.
like I was bulimic because I didn't have tools to manage my emotions and I was
Yeah.
such a deep feeler that it was
Right.
like food was the only way I could even figure out how to be okay
Mm-hmm.
at like 19 years old. And the idea, and I would be like, I don't get it. Because like if I'm in love or something really good's happening, my body's like totally skinny and normal and healthy like it was
Yeah.
in my teens. And if I'm stressed or I'm unhappy or I'm going through a breakup, all of a sudden I'm like, my digestive system is a mess and I put on weight and I don't like my
Mm-hmm.
body. And it was like, it didn't feel like I had any control
Yep.
at all. So going and having them be like looking at nutrition as connection and purpose and movement and connection to self or the big picture, and looking at that as someone who's such a deep feeler, it was
Mm-hmm.
like all of a sudden life made a lot more sense. And just the idea that like, there's no, because I got into reading diet books in college, right? Because I had put on
Yep.
weight.
Mm-hmm.
I had an eating disorder. I was like, all of a sudden, I had never had weight issues, had never had body image issues, none of that. And then
Mm-hmm.
immediately, like halfway through college, I started, freshman 15, all of this
Yeah.
stuff. And then really, I remember there was a girl on my floor in my dorm who was like, this is how you throw up. And like, this will keep you skinny. And I was like, I'm desperate. I don't know. And then
That's
it
so
became this
sad.
like, yeah. I remember I tried smoking cigarettes. I tried just drinking Diet Coke. I
Yeah.
was so desperate to feel like myself again. And I was like, I felt so uncomfortable in my skin and was dealing with
Mm-hmm.
stress and didn't realize like living with 3 roommates was, there's like a lot of
Right.
things that were making it really hard. And it wasn't until my late 20s when I went to IAN where like someone gave me this framework of, you know, it does make sense that when you're happy, you're thinner, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it does, like how you feel
Mm-hmm.
emotionally affects how you feel physically. Because up until that point, I don't know, I'm sure you experienced this. I was never diagnosed with anything specific. I
Mm.
was seeing a lot of doctors that were like, this is why your hair is falling out. This is why you don't
Right.
have your period. This is why you have allergies. This is why you have melasma. This is why you have
Mm.
gastrointestinal issues. This is why you're bleeding. And like, no one talked to each other. No one put
Yep.
any of it together. This is take antidepressants. This is why you're depressed and
Mm-hmm.
anxious. And having someone in a place that's like, no, you're a whole person. This is all connected. And how often I'm still doing this, and I'm sure you are as well, with people being like, no. Like, what's going on? All of it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about like the group programs, what I do. I'm like, listen, this is a space to talk about whatever's coming up during this process. So maybe it
Mm-hmm.
is your relationship, or maybe it's your job, and that feels unrelated when we're talking about nutrition. But I
Mm-hmm.
promise you, it's not.
Yep.
Anything you feel called to talk about in our sessions or in my group
Mm-hmm.
is directly correlated to your health.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And as I've been practicing seeing patients over the years, it's interesting because I actually kind of, not that I ever got away from it, but you go to IAN, which is great, and they really focus on the mind body connection. And then I did go like the more traditional route
Yeah.
when it comes to
Yeah.
nutrition. So, I went to NYU, and it was a very traditional, like, nutrition science courses, which is great. And it's great to know. However,
Mhm.
after that, and I now primarily see clients with autoimmune diseases. And so after that, I really got back to this theory of, you know, yes, I guess the science is important. However, the emotional connection, I really truly believe, is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so nothing makes me more sad than to see people like weighing their food or counting calories, because
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
please stop. Because what's really important is like, are you happy in your life? Like,
Yes.
are you happy in your job? Do you like where you live? Are you, how is your environment? And so every single client that I have, I ask these questions to. And just like you said, a lot of them are confused and not understanding why I want to know if they're happy in their job. Um, and I explain, nutrition is one thing that feeds us, but it's only
Yes.
one thing that feeds us. All of these other areas of your life are contributing to how you feel. And so if we only deal with nutrition, great, you might feel a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hate your job and you're unhappy in a relationship, and, if you haven't dealt with, that traumatic thing that happened to you, you'll never really feel great.
Yeah. And you won't be healthy, right?
No.
You
Mm-mm.
won't. And I always joke that like, you know, the tequila shots you take with your best friends
Mhm.
are better for you than the kale that you eat alone crying in your apartment.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's true.
Yep.
Like there's so
Uh-huh.
much more. Nutrition's just a way in. And
Mm-hmm.
it was really, I loved getting to know you. And Haley and I met recently. She's also in
Mm-hmm.
Portugal. Um, instant connection. And it's really cool because ever since, because I have a non-traditional background into this field through my own journey, but also like so much of like my acting training. Because
Mm.
I was like, okay, wow, I was not in my body.
Right.
Didn't listen to my body. I went outside
Right.
of my body. I read so many diet books. I did what other people were doing. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to listen. I didn't know how to trust. And if you don't know how to do those two things, it's sometimes really hard. Well, I would say all the time, hard to
Mm-hmm.
be really healthy because
Mm-hmm.
you're just not in touch with how you feel. And
Right.
so a lot of the embodiment work I brought in, and it was interesting because there were moments after IN where like going the route you went was really interesting to me, and it made me very excited because I think I sometimes still, even though I've had this business for like almost 10 years and like fully transformed my relationship to my health and my body,
Mm-hmm.
um that I will have imposter syndrome, that I haven't gotten like a master's or a PhD. And it was actually really exciting when we kind of connected over like, yeah, all of that science is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not dealing with how you actually feel,
Right.
you're never going to be healthy. And I love
Right.
that, like, I feel like health and wellness is moving in that direction in a way that's like
Mm-hmm.
holistic and really exciting.
Mm-hmm. I get really excited about the trauma piece.
Mm-hmm,
And you and I
mm-hmm.
have talked about this too. And you've given me tools, which I'm so thankful for. But you can't. There's no way to separate these traumatic experiences with how they impact your body.
Yeah.
And even the things that you don't even really think made a difference.
Hmm.
And it's interesting. I will ask clients, when you first started experiencing symptoms, what else was going on in your life?
Yep.
And 98% of people will say, somebody died. I went through a divorce. I lost my
Hmm.
job. The major like foundation shaking things that can happen. One of those things happened, or multiple of those things happened,
Hmm.
abuse, uh, whatever. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
people can always connect something that happened with them, trauma wise to their symptoms. And maybe
Totally.
they don't realize that they're connected. And then the other 2% of people that tell me nothing happened, everything was fine, I was super happy, come back to me. And, a week or a month later, and they'll say, no, I've been thinking about that question. And actually something did happen.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I was speaking to someone, a client the other day, and I asked her that question. And she said, oh, everything was great. I was super happy in my career. I was like, a top salesperson, and I was, functioning really well, and I was hitting all my goals, and, basically like getting all of these awards at work, and I loved it, and, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, and then what? And she said, oh, well, after that, I actually ended up quitting my job, even though I loved it, because she wanted to write a book. And I said, and then what? And she said, the weirdest thing happened. Once I eliminated my job from my life and I really just allowed myself to focus on doing this other thing that I thought I would love, that's when all of my symptoms came. And
Interesting.
so, and I was like, well, when you were in this job and you were this high performing salesperson, what was your stress like? And she was like, oh, my stress was through the roof.
Yeah.
Okay. So once your body gets used to the high cortisol, your body gets used to the stress. But once you take your body out of that atmosphere and your body's like, oh, thank God I can relax,
Yes.
it allows itself to have these
Fall apart.
symptoms. And yeah, exactly, and have these symptoms that it was pushing off because you were so stressed. It's
Yeah.
inevitable. If she would have stayed in her job, she still would have gotten these symptoms. But it's just interesting how it really does all come back to the trauma, the cortisol, the stress, all of it, all the time. Like you
Yeah.
can't talk about health without talking about stress and trauma.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. And it's so interesting because I've been looking more and more about like, what is it that I'm doing now, right? Because
Hmm.
I, have incorporated a lot of this stuff. And because as you
Hmm.
see, people come to you because they don't feel well, whether
Right.
that is autoimmune, gut,
Hmm.
weight, bad relationship with their body. And
Hmm.
like the nutrition part is a really beautiful key in, right? Like, okay, well, we're going to get you sleeping better. We're going to get you eating the thing. We're going to
Hmm.
figure out what works for you. And then all of a sudden the brain is optimized. And then all of a sudden it's very clear
Right.
that it is unprocessed trauma. It is a bad
Hmm.
relationship to, horrible self-talk or bad limiting beliefs. It is, a bad relationship or trauma, right? And
Hmm.
that immediately comes up. And until you deal with that, you're
Hmm.
not ever going to get better, unfortunately. And I always feel like being intentional and playing around with your body in like especially with nutrition to be able to
Hmm.
get clarity and optimize your brain, I essentially feel like people are coming to us in disconnection, right?
Right.
They're kind of living from the neck up, they're doing
Yep.
things, maybe living very externally, doing what they thought they should be doing what everyone else is doing. And when you come back to it and we get quiet, we learn how to listen, it's like, ooh, there's discomfort there,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And we need to deal with that, whether that's therapy, whether that's dealing with trauma, whether it's dealing with like our relationship to ourselves.
Right.
But it's just really, really fascinating that the more people, and I know you and I were talking about this recently because we're in a really interesting moment where like there's a lot of testing and aura rings
Hmm.
and anything
Hmm.
that's going to track Fitbits, Apple Watches. We have so much data, and
Hmm.
you can test your microbiome and your epigenetics, and you can look at your poop, and
Hmm.
like that stuff can be great, but it's really interesting to see. It's a little scary to me because I feel like it's people getting really outside of themselves. Like, what are your
Yep.
thoughts on that stuff?
So glad that you brought this up. No surprise, I feel the same. So I think that, all of these things are helpful tools
Hmm.
sometimes. However, I've seen them be really unhelpful, and I've seen people kind of become obsessed with the data and,
Mm-hmm.
say, well, this data point is showing this, but I want it to look like this. And like just becoming obsessed with the data, which,
Mm-hmm.
okay, sometimes data is helpful, yeah. I will not say that we don't need data ever. However, your body knows, and and so
Yeah.
take away the data and you will come to the same conclusions
Mm-hmm.
without stressing yourself out over, what was my REM sleep versus my light sleep, or whatever the thing is that people are caught up on. And so I think it also is a way to distract yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's a way to not have to really become in tune with your body, and not
Yeah.
have to become in tune with yourself, and rely on these outside sources to tell you what to do. And
Yes.
my, mantra is that your body knows. You know what to
Mm-hmm.
do. You know what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Your body
Yep.
knows. You know the way to eat. You know everything. But how can you tune in, and how can you listen to that? And I think a lot of times these devices just further separate your inner knowing from yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, absolutely.
I do sometimes suggest that people, will get their lab work done. And I will
Yeah.
sometimes suggest that people, get their microbiome tested, but it's a last resort. It's not a first resort,
Mm-hmm.
because I guarantee you there's so many other things you can do to feel better. And quite frankly, save a lot of money, because these things are expensive, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, oh gosh, I was talking to some guy recently about this, and he was like, "Well, no, I like the Aura Ring because like sometimes I wake up and I don't feel rested, but I it says I got good sleep, so then I push and I go through the gym anyway." And I'm like, "No, not no, no." And then he's like, "I feel better because I push through." I'm like, "Do you though? Like, is
Yeah.
that?" Or like, how many times have you had people like, "Well, I got my allergy tested," and it's
Hmm.
like my allergies, panel done, and it says I wasn't allergic to almonds, so I'm eating them again, even though they give
Yep.
me stomach aches. Or
Yep.
like, and it's like, this is
All the time.
insane.
All the
This
time.
is insane. Like,
Hmm.
no,
Hmm.
absolutely not. Like, you know what it takes to feel good. You have
Hmm.
to listen to that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, people want to. It almost reminds me of how they talk about intellectualizing is a really good
Hmm.
way to not feel your feelings,
Hmm.
emotionally, and like testing is a really good way to not feel your physical symptoms.
Right. Right.
And like it's the same. It's like
That's so
let's
true.
just think about this and
Right.
use our brains and come up with conclusions just thinking instead of feeling, and you're never going to get to the right place with that.
Never, never. That's such a good point. That's so true. And the same with like the biohacking. It's like, you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to hack your body. Like you don't have to treat your body like it's this robot. Like you should treat your body like it's your gentle best friend, and you shouldn't have
Yes.
to you restrict what you're eating, or don't even get me started on fasting. I'm like anti-fasting, and all of these things that are super popular now. It's just like you shouldn't have to treat your body like it's a machine or like it's a robot. You really
Mm-hmm.
like it's really about creating this really loving relationship with your body.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, we've kind of talked about this when it comes to weight loss too. When clients come to me, yes, you will lose weight, but
Mm-hmm.
it's because it's a happy side effect.
Yes.
It's because you love yourself. It's because you
Yes.
just are happy. It's because
Mm-hmm.
you are eating better foods that nourish you. And then
Mm-hmm.
the weight literally falls off of you. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to try.
Yeah.
And so it's this creating this just loving, supportive relationship with yourself, I think is the most important thing. And the devices and the biohacking and the testing doesn't necessarily promote that.
No. And it was so interesting because I kept, even during the pandemic, we had all the time. I was like, go get a PhD and go do, and it was
Hmm.
like, I don't need no more science. Like
No.
I've been in this long enough to understand that like it's so much more simple, right?
Hmm.
Like, and the
Yep.
more, I mean, I was, and I'm sure you did the same, like for years, just any new book about nutrition that would come out, I
Yep.
would read it. And
Hmm.
after a while, I'm like, it's all the same shit. Like
Yep.
nothing is changing.
Hmm.
It's all the same. It's like kind of goes back to Michael Pollan, right?
Hmm. Uh-huh.
you know, you know, the real food, not too much,
Yep.
mostly plants.
Yep.
Like, yep. And like the stuff that works for you. And that let that be just a simple part of it. And it's so funny
Mhm.
because you say be like your, you know, gentle best friend or whatever. I can't even get people to do that. I'm like,
I
pretend
know.
you have the
Right.
cutest, tiniest, helpless puppy.
Right.
Like how much love and it's like people can't even think about doing that to another human. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
what's your favorite animal? Okay,
Right.
picture it a baby and be really
Hmm.
nice to this helpless baby animal. Because like people humans are nuts, man.
I know. I know. And the way that people talk to themselves too, you
That's a
know,
big part of it. That's a big
it's
part of what I do at this point. It's a
it's
big, big part of it.
just the I don't know if you've noticed this. I don't know if we've talked about this, but I find a lot of most of my clients are women, not all of them, but a
Mhm.
lot of them are women. And there's definitely a character trait of
Mhm.
women with autoimmune diseases um,
Yeah.
that are super, well, women in general, I think, but are super perfectionists. And
Yes.
I'll say we
Yes.
because I fall into this category,
Same.
but
Yep.
we,
Me too.
you know, we have the highest expectations for ourselves, and whatever we're doing
Mhm.
is not enough. And so
Yeah.
we can work harder, or we should work harder. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. You know, we slept in instead of going to the gym, and now we feel guilty about it. And so
Yeah.
it's this pressure that we're putting on ourselves all the time that
Hmm.
really manifests in illness. And
Yes.
so it's, you know, this character trait, this personality trait of feeling like you have to be hard on yourself. And
Hmm.
so I say, like, if your best friend right now was saying, I'm really tired, I think I'd like to take a nap, imagine you tell her, no, go to the gym instead,
Yeah.
because that's what you're telling yourself. You know,
Yep.
like you're telling
Yep.
me, like, I'm really tired, I would love to just take it easy and you know, read a book or take a nap, and you're forcing yourself to go do this hit exercise
Right. Which
which
is like the exact opposite of what you do when you're
exactly,
tired.
exactly. And it's like, if your best friend was complaining that she was tired, you wouldn't force her to go to the gym. So be your
No.
best friend and take a nap if you're tired. You know, like
Yeah.
it's this high, yeah, perfectionist, I think. And again, it's hard. I struggle with myself too. It's a difficult thing.
It really is. It was interesting. I have been reading, I've been in this period. I love reading, but in the past year or something, it's like not time, I guess. Cause I keep
Mm,
I would read like, I don't know, 20 books a year. And this year I like
hmm.
cannot do it. But I picked up Gabor Mate's latest book and he talks about this so much about autoimmune disease and women who like swallow anger,
Yep.
don't speak up for themselves, don't ask what they need, and the correlation
Hmm.
of disease there. And this is what was so interesting to me, and where I feel like my acting career and what
Hmm.
I, you know, studying acting really, really helps and informs what I do now. Because again, I mostly work with women and a lot of women who have complicated relationships, like whether
Hmm.
it's disordered eating or just like
Hmm.
weight issues, body issues, food issues, which I mean, God, who doesn't? But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So many. And I was so hard on myself. I was so, so hard
Yeah.
on myself. And like, of course you're on camera. So I'm like acting, I'm modeling, and it's like
Hmm.
every single thing. And, you know, in my early 20s, I did have a photographer tell me I should lose weight. You know what I mean? Then you like,
Yeah.
you know, like the narrative in my brain was so crazy. And then it was like you put yourself in these high pressure situations. And I wasn't very good at auditioning early on. So like every time I didn't do my best work, it was like I could not be mean. I was so mean. I was so
Mm.
mean to myself. I was so disgusted by what I looked like. I was so like I would come out of a bad audition and before I knew it, there's like a cookie in my mouth from like the
Yeah.
bodega on the corner.
Yeah.
And it was like it was just this like number of years where it was just like I couldn't be meaner. And I was living with my parents for a little while during the pandemic. And
Hmm.
I remember when this first started in college because it was like I was so grossed out by the weight I put on. And it was like I was dealing with anxiety and depression for the first time. I had been bulimic, and I saw this picture. I remember I was on spring break, and like Key West, just my mom and I were on a trip,
Hmm.
and she had taken a picture of me in my bikini laying on a towel. And I remember the moment because the look on my face is like pure disgust. So it was
Mm.
like, do not take a picture of my gross, disgusting body. And I remember I saw this, 2 years ago. I pull this picture and I look at myself at 19 and it's beautiful and perfect.
Yeah.
And is it a
Yeah.
totally flat stomach? No, but it's like I burst into tears. It was like this really interesting cathartic healing moment of like,
Wow.
it was so like I could cry now because I think from 19 to nearly 30, the horrible things I would tell myself, like
Yeah.
how, and like looking back at, we talk about epigenetics, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all predisposed to certain
Mm-hmm.
diseases in our genes, but it's how we behave, the quality of our
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, the food, sleep, relationships, all of those things that tell us whether they turn on or turn off. And looking at what I did in my 20s, I signaled my body to
Yep.
fucking eat itself.
Yep.
And it was
Yep.
so interesting because my mom, bless her, right? She was a model, she's amazing, was always like, we'll never have flat stomachs. Like that's our
Mm.
thing. We have
Yeah.
nice legs, but like we don't
Mm-hmm.
have good stomachs. Like suck in and stand up.
Uh,
So that was the
huh.
messaging I got.
Yep.
And not that she ever called me fat or anything like that, but my whole messaging early on, and where did I have my autoimmune issues? In my stomach. Because I
Yep.
spent my entire teens and 20s looking at my stomach and being like, you're disgusting and horrible, and you're disgusting, and
Oh.
this is disgusting. And it took so much therapy. It took so much. I got into like mindfulness and like really had to uncover the psychology because I was like, I'm making myself sick. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember it wasn't until I've been into meditation
Mm-hmm.
for the last like 10 plus years, because that naturopath I saw, when she was like, the last part of your healing is meditation. And I
Yep.
was like, fuck off. Like, I'm in my late 20s. Like,
I'm
I have
busy.
time. I'm a bartender. I'm so fun. What do you want me to sit and be like, oh, you know what I mean? I was like, no way. It just took me such a long time to actually sit down and do it. And it was crazy
Yeah.
because like the last 20% of my healing came from a
Yep.
meditation journey, because it was my nervous system was so
Mm-hmm.
hypervigilant that it
Mm-hmm.
started to calm it down, and that stress response started to heal my body a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I was at a meditation retreat 2 years ago, and this woman who had developed Parkinson's in her 20s, which is so unheard of,
Wow.
she got on stage because she had reversed it through this style of meditation. And this Joe Dispenza, for all of the people who know how
Mm-hmm.
much I love him. And she had came up to talk about how she had reversed it. And she talked about exactly what you were saying, how she was so perfectionist and
Mm-hmm.
so mean to herself and so hard on herself. And it wasn't until she started to like crack that open and really develop a little bit more self-compassion and self-love and
Mm-hmm.
empathy for herself, that her body healed. So at the core, I feel like so much of what I do, and you do too in your own way, it's like healing is self-love.
Absolutely.
It really,
Absolutely.
it's like,
Yep.
it's just
Absolutely.
love. And
Yep.
at the end of the day, the further into it we get, people will be like, well, what about this diet or supplements or testing? And I'm like, guys, if you can just start slowly filling your life with
Mm-hmm.
stuff, with people and
Mm-hmm.
experiences and spaces that
Mm-hmm.
make you feel joy or at
Yep.
least peace, you will heal. You will lose weight.
Absolutely. It's so, I laughed when you said that you were reading Gabor Mate's new book, because it's behind me on my coffee table. And I'm
Book
obsessed with
club.
it. But it's really, this concept of how your thoughts, even,
Yeah.
your thoughts really manifest in your body.
Yes.
It's exciting. Like, I think it's so exciting because in, 20 years, like, the tools that people will have,
Yes.
and hopefully, the teenagers that can think about themselves differently and understand that the way that they talk to themselves matters, and that they
Yeah.
can have tools, and meditation can be, one of the tools that the kids are doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, like, it makes me so excited to think about where healthcare hopefully is headed.
Yeah.
And our understanding about our bodies and the mind body connection. I'm really hopeful that eventually this will just be like standard, and you'll go to the doctor's office and he'll say, well, have you tried meditating? Like, I can't wait for
Yeah.
that day. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
excited.
I know.
It's just, and the thing that really, like, hits me in the heart is like teenage girls,
Yeah. Me too.
because it's just, I worked with a teenage girl that was like 16, and she came to me. Her mother signed her up for weight loss, and
Mm-hmm.
my only thing was, I will happily see her, but your mother cannot be on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so excited, and we had so many breakthroughs. And, she's like, my mom feeds me this. My mom wants me to lose weight. Like, all of these things. Her mother was making her like walk on the treadmill after school. And I said to her, do you want to lose weight? And I still remember this conversation because I was trying to be professional and not cry. And
Oh.
she said, no, I actually, like, I love myself. I think I'm beautiful. And I mean, after I hung up that phone call, I was just like a mess. Like,
Oh my
just,
God, I'm not
you
professional. I
know,
will cry on phone.
I mean,
I
it
will
was
cry with my
just,
clients.
it was so, and I remember just being like, thank you that this girl already can like recognize that she is beautiful no matter what she weighs, you know?
Yes.
And so, and I actually, working with her, I was like, okay, your mom is signing you up
No
for weight
problem.
loss. We're not working on weight loss. Like, I don't care
Yeah.
about weight
Yeah.
loss. Like, that's
Oh, yeah,
not what we're
yeah.
doing, And so, but to hear her say like, no, I think I'm really beautiful. And her homework, which I give this to adults too, and it's actually
Yeah.
harder for adults, but her homework was every single day, write down 3 things about yourself that you love,
Okay, everyone
and
do that. Do that for a
everyone do
week,
that.
everyone. Everyone do
And
that. Or a month.
I have, I have clients now that can't do it. And I have
Yeah.
clients now that they're just like, I can't think of anything.
Oh, I guess we have to end the call by both of us doing it, probably.
Oh,
This is not a
yes.
call. It's a podcast.
Yes, definitely. Because it's so, it's getting into the habit of appreciating yourself and getting
Yeah.
into the habit of just loving yourself no matter what. And like your
Yeah.
flaws too,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just, it's really, really life changing. And I feel like I'm just on a rant, but it's
No,
so
it's
important. We all
beautiful
need
though.
to love
No,
ourselves.
no, that's the key to this though. At the end of the day, and I always feel like I sound so hippy dippy, but like at the core, like 10 plus years healing my relationship to my mind and body, healing
Yep.
all kinds of physical, mental, emotional issues. That's the key. And I've had my handful of teenage girls are like, oh, this is when I was like, I need to pivot I had a mom, she signed up with her daughter initially, and her daughter was like 9.
Wow.
And like a bit overweight. And I remember I was at their house because this is when I used to do in-person stuff in New York. And she grabbed the daughter's stomach and was like, this is the problem. And
Oh.
I had to, and this was like a very type A, like
Oh.
breadwinner, banker, New York, like
Yep.
strong, kind of scary lady. And I was like, took her outside at the end and I was like, absolutely not. I will work with you guys, but we're here to have her love and empower her body. Right there, I hate to say this, but that's what creates eating disorders.
Yep.
That
It
moment
is.
right there, you're
Absolutely.
teaching her to hate her body. And this is a young girl who hasn't had a growth spurt. What we want to do together, I know it comes from love, is we want to empower this girl. And right there is making her wrong, making her body wrong. She's not even 10 years old. The mom burst into tears.
Wow.
And it was like, oh my God, thank you. And it was kind of scary for me too, because like reprimanding someone, one of your clients in a very gentle way. And then it was interesting. This reminds me of and I'm sure I've told this story before, but it's one of my favorites. One of my dear, like favorite clients, I had her for a couple of years, came to me and it was about her daughter. I'm uncomfortable with the clothes she's wearing and how she's kind of bigger and she's okay, wearing these certain things that I would be horrified to wear. And I was like, I want you to work with her. And I was like, no offense, lady, but this sounds like a you thing.
Exactly.
And I was like, listen, if you do my group
Yeah.
program and I was like, this is my offer to you. Like, you sign up for my group program. You do it for you. You don't put any of it on your kids. You don't, all of this is just your work. Then I will work with your kid. Because seeing that, especially like the mom who grabbed the little girl's stomach, I ended up working with her for a while, but the rest of the family wouldn't make changes. So nothing happened.
That's hard. Yeah.
It's like and they were like just kind of wanting to put this little girl on a diet and filling the house full of junk and having these junky meals where she couldn't eat it.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, this is like child abuse in my opinion.
It is.
But it was so interesting because this other mom, like more power to her, she's like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So she took my program, transformed her relationship with food and her body and consciousness. And at the end of it, in passing, barely, she's like, both my kids lost weight. They're doing their grades got better and we're all getting along better as a side effect of me learning to take care of myself better.
I call it the trickle down effect, which is like if I work with one person in a family, the rest of the family automatically feels better and gets healthier.
Yeah.
It's just, which is my favorite thing ever, because it's like you work with one person and all of these people can benefit. But it's, the trickle down effect is just like everybody changes if
Yeah.
they're open to it. That's the key.
Wellness
If
can
they're
be
open to it.
contagious. Well, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
absolutely.
And I
Uh-huh.
always tell people the best thing to do is be an example, right? Because
Yep.
I'll have so many people that are like, I want my husband to see you or my kid. And I was
Mm,
like, unless someone's open to change, I don't want to see them because
right.
it's a waste of everyone's money. Like you
Yep.
have to feel
Exactly.
excited about this.
Exactly.
But no, be an example. And when you
Yeah.
start looking good and feeling good, people are immediately like leaning in, being like, I want what
Right.
she's having. What is
Right.
that?
What is she doing?
So, for those of you who are interested, because you're brilliant, and
Thank
I'm
you.
not just saying that because we share a lot of opinions.
Because we're the same.
But yeah, you tell us about who your ideal clients are, who you work with. If people
Yeah.
feel excited about what you do, like who should be reaching out to you?
Um, Although I would say 80% of the clients that I see have a diagnosed autoimmune disease, I see people with symptoms.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I don't really see people that just want to lose weight. But
Hmm.
if you are having GI symptoms that you can't figure out,
Hmm.
I'm your girl. If you are having hormonal symptoms, that has
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
become a specialty of mine. I can certainly help you with that. But basically, if you're having symptoms that you know deep down inside are not normal.
Yeah.
So autoimmune or not, if you just don't feel well and you're having these like symptoms, whatever they may be, that you want to go away.
Hmm.
And we kind of talked about this, but it's very much root cause.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
deal with like band-aid solutions. It's let's figure out why this is happening in the first place so that we can
Hmm.
fix it.
Hmm.
I see everybody virtually. So like you said, I'm in Portugal, but I have clients all over the world. So
Hmm.
it doesn't matter. But people that are wanting to change, like
Yeah.
I have, a little bit of a tough love approach when I see clients, because
Hmm.
I won't force you to do anything. Like
Hmm.
I will help you figure out the answers for what works for you. But
Hmm.
if you don't want to make changes, I'm not disappointed.
Oh yeah, I don't
It's
care.
just like, I don't care. Don't make the changes then. It's not me. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, oh, people sometimes I think want to be pushed and kind of want this
Yeah.
game. And I'm
Yeah.
like, nope, you don't want to make the changes. Don't make the changes.
Yeah.
But people that are, excited about change, excited about wanting to feel better.
Hmm.
So those are my clients.
I always joke, I'm like, I already have your money. So like if you don't
Yeah,
want to do anything, I
exactly.
don't give a shit. Like
But
I'll just
I
hang out
don't.
and talk to you. I
Right.
love people.
Exactly.
So like if you're not
Right.
willing to change, like and I truly believe that people don't change until they're incredibly uncomfortable. So when people are
Exactly.
like, well,
Yep.
I don't know why I did it, I was like, I guess you're not uncomfortable enough. So if you
Right.
wanted to get more uncomfortable, like on my
Right.
watch,
Right.
I like you. So like I'm down. I'm down to just hang out if you want to pay me.
Uh-huh. Yep.
But yeah, sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, go ahead.
Um So yes, so people, I think what I was thinking when you were saying that is like, and this is where and I'm seeing it more because the wellness community here. Because I had a couple of friends who were like,
Mm.
"Well, what you do doesn't really make sense in the UK or Europe," and I'm like, "No, no, no. There are a lot of people who are, yeah, like I have clients from all over as well.
Right.
We're
Right.
detectives.
Right. Exactly.
Like we are
Exactly.
detectives.
Yep.
Is at the end
Hmm.
like a lot of information, a lot of things for you to
Yep.
try, but at the end of the day, we are detectives, and we like partner with you to figure out what the hell's going on."
Exactly.
Um, so we always wrap this up. Well, we're going to end with the things we like about ourselves because that's uncomfortable. And that immediately was like, ooh, do I want to
Yeah.
say that out loud? We have to do it. But Love Through It is the name of the podcast. I truly, the whole idea behind this is to actually, I might have a couple of questions for you related to this, but the whole idea is to give people tools
Hmm.
to really take responsibility for their health,
Hmm.
for their life, and understand that we always have a choice, right? Life forever. The one guarantee is going to serve piles of shit over and over again.
Yep.
And we can look at those as opportunities to grow and for
Hmm.
them to be for us. And we can look at that as an opportunity to be victimized and get sicker.
Hmm.
When life hands you a whole pile of crap that doesn't feel good, what is one of your favorite tools to sort of pick yourself back up,
Yeah.
reframe, get back on track?
I go back to basics. So something that I teach people is everybody has their non-negotiable foundations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and it's the simple things that we know, but maybe we don't really want to believe. So sleep, when shit hits the fan and you feel terrible, or like you're having a big traumatic thing that happens to you, how's your sleep? Are you allowing yourself to get sleep, or are you staying up watching Netflix?
Yeah.
Turn the Netflix off and go to sleep. So, it's sleep, it's water. Nobody drinks enough water. This is my crusade. It's like, just please, please, please trust me when I tell you that your life will change when you drink enough water, or more water than you think you need. So it's sleep, it's water, it's vegetables, and it's joy. Like, what are you doing to make yourself happy? I have people write a joy list. Write down all of the little things that, it could be like a fancy cup of coffee or a FaceTime with your sister. Like, write down all of the things that you experience joy with, and make sure you're doing one of those things every day. And so, like, those are your foundations. It's like, you can't put the roof on a house if you don't have the foundation. Yes. So it's like, go back to your foundational non-negotiables, the things that you know that you really, really need. And they're slightly different for most people, but not really. Everybody needs water. Everybody needs, nourishing vegetables. Everybody needs sleep, and everybody needs joy. And so if you're doing those things, like, they will ground you and they will support you when you feel like the world has just like put you in a dumpster fire.
Yeah. And it often feels that way.
Often it does.
I know. I always, because I have like non-negotiables that I always talk about with my clients, and sleep is number one always.
Yep.
Always. Go there first.
Yep.
Because
exactly.
It's hard to control your thoughts, your emotions, your cravings. The world seems like a much shittier place when you're not sleeping.
Absolutely. Yep.
That answered a couple of my questions. All right. So we now need to think about 3 things that we love about ourselves.
Let's do it.
All right. Do you want to go first, or should I?
Yeah. I can go first. Do you want to do like 1, 1, 1, or should I just do all of them?
Okay. Do all of them.
Okay. I love my kneecaps because my kneecaps are the exact same kneecaps that my mom has. And so every single time that I look at my kneecaps, I think about my mom.
Oh my gosh. You just inspired a different one in me that I'm going to steal.
I love my butt because it's big and it's strong, and it allows me to hike up these insane Lisbon hills every day.
Oh my God. I know. I always, whenever I'm walking up a hill, I'm like, my butt's getting better. My butt's getting better.
I'm like, thank you, butt. Thank you, butt. Like, you're helping me up these mountains that we climb every day. And I love my hair because it's thick and it's shiny, and I just think it's very pretty.
I love that. Yes. Hell yes.
Yeah.
I am stealing your kneecaps. I'm raising you thumbs. So my paternal grandmother was like my soulmate. Like, she, we had such a deep connection. Like, we just were so similar, and I spent a lot of my childhood with her. And I could do a podcast on her alone. Like, the woman lit up a room. She just was like joy incarnated, to me at least. And she always was like, oh, I hate my thumbs. I hate my thumbs. And I would always look at them. And my thumbs look like her thumbs. But for some reason, I didn't learn to hate them. They just remind me of this woman that I love so much. So I love my thumbs, and I'm going to love them extra now that I put this together. Because whenever I look at them sometimes, I'm like, they look like grandma's thumbs, but grandma hated her thumbs. But I don't, because I love grandma so much. So I love my somewhat stumpy grandma Sina thumbs. I love my legs because for some reason I got blessed genetically, and my mom, it's like, people are always like, do you do calf workouts? I was like, no, I got this from my mom. Like, these are just, I got them, but they're like the thing I got from my mom. And she's got, like, hers are even more amazing. But like, it was like my mom and I, good legs. And I really like my nose.
You have a great nose.
I like my nose, and it's funny because almost recently, a guy I'm friends with, I used to date in my 20s, who lives in LA, was talking to me. He was like, I don't know why. He was showing someone a picture of me, and they were like, everyone was convinced your nose isn't real. Like, it's not. And I'm like, no, this is my real nose. Like,
I understand that. No, I understand that because your nose is literally like the perfect nose. Like,
Thank
It
you very
should be in like
much.
plastic surgery offices. Like, would you like this nose? Like, it is a very good nose.
It was funny because I remember when I first went to the acting conservatory, there was this pretty blonde girl, and we didn't have the best nose, but also lovely and delightful. And I remember she came up to me and she goes, "Oh, you have one of those noses that girls pay for." I was like, "What?" It was like the first time anyone had said that to me. And then I remember bartending for a while. People would be like, "Oh, so sorry, come over here. Can you tell me who did your nose?" And I'd be like, "Jesus, my mom
Jesus.
and dad." And then the other fun fact was, I don't remember I don't have any siblings, but I have this cousin, Derek. Derek, I love you, who's like my brother. We're the same age. And I remember he was visiting in Maine one summer, and we both realized that for some reason we thought this was the funniest and coolest thing that we could do, because I don't have a lot of cartilage in my nose. It's like little and smushy. That we
next
could
time
do
I
this.
see you, I'm touching your nose. That is the coolest trick. Oh my God.
So for those of you listening, you can watch the YouTube video, but I basically can, if I close my nose because there's not much cartilage and I just breathe in really hard, I can like squeeze it shut and it will stay that way.
I have so much cartilage in my nose, it doesn't even.
Oh no, mine's like, I barely have any. It's like really smushy. If you touch it, it's like, it's not even there. And it was so funny because we thought it was like, I don't know who said this to us, but it's like a Michael, after he had a nose job, it was like an impersonation where this was our Michael Jackson impersonation. We do it all the time and crack each other up. And then I remember I was telling this story recently. Because as an actor, you had like a lot of weird fucking jobs. And like, I got so many weird jobs off Craigslist, so many weird jobs. And so many times I thought about selling my eggs. They'd be like $8,000. And I was like, couldn't do it. But I remember I ended up working for this really cool startup. It was like this video business card startup where we'd make these like quick, like black and white videos where people would introduce what they did. And it was this like group interview with maybe 10 of us. And we had to do a bunch of different things and like write stuff. And the last thing we had to do was make people laugh in under 30 seconds. So I stood up and I was like, I have a Michael Jackson impersonation. And I just did this. A long time.
I really hope everybody watches.
And I got the job. So that got me a job.
I mean, I really hope everybody watches this because her impersonation is scarily accurate. Like, you actually look like Michael Jackson when you do that.
I mean, it is a similar, like when he like overdid it with his nose job, and I can like emulate that in real life. The funny thing about having a podcast and it's like, because often I like almost forget we're doing this, and I'm like, oh, I'm just having a really great conversation with my new friend Haley, who's like phenomenal. The things that come out of my mouth that like people will now know about me is kind of horrifying. But yeah, but while I wrap things up, I want to say I don't know you that well yet, but you have the things I love. The three things I love about you.
I can't wait to do this about you.
You just from day one, it's like you have this really grounded, beautiful energy to be around, and it's like straight shooter, right? Like you are who you are in the most beautiful way. I absolutely adore your laugh and your sense of humor. And it's so funny because I was slightly intimidated by you initially because I don't know why. Like you just have like strong woman energy. And the coolest thing about that is like you just own it in the coolest way. Like you're a bad bitch.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And
you don't have to do this in return.
No.
Not looking for this. I just
No. I'm doing this in return because you will probably think that I'm like taking the easy way out and taking like the cop out, but literally the things that I admire about you are the same things that you just said about me. And also, when I first met you, but literally ditto. When I first met you, I was intimidated by you, and I was like, "Who is this gorgeous girl that just like emulates this feminine, amazing bad bitch energy? Like, who is this?" But also really, really appreciate that, you are who you are, and you are also just a no bullshit straight shooter. Like you don't sugarcoat anything.
No.
which I very much appreciate. So yes, I love all the same things about you.
This is maybe why we like each other so much.
It is.
I know we had this cute moment last night, guys, where because it was so funny. Like early on, like halfway through, we like went to this beach. We had like mutual friends. We ended up at this like beautiful beach restaurant on the beach, and we're like, oh wow, we have so much in common. And last night we had dinner, funnily enough. And I go into my purse and I bring out my pure encapsulations, digestive enzymes, and the look on Haley's face, she was like, oh, I'm usually that girl. And of course, I take out 2, and I was like, would you like one? And she's like, I would. And I was like, I'm always the one giving out digestive enzymes to my friends. And I was like, we are same.
It was really this moment of like, oh my God, we are the same. And I forgot my enzymes, and you saved me with the enzymes.
I did.
Oh, I loved it. It's really my love language.
I know, same, right? Oh my God, digestion as a love language, honestly. Well, truly, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving us our time,
really
guys.
Has. Same.
This woman is brilliant, especially if you tend towards autoimmune or you are in that gray space of like, people are telling me I'm fine and I know I'm not, or I maybe don't feel that bad, but I know it could be better.
Yep.
Like, I feel like you are a very brilliant resource for that. So guys, reach out to her. We'll be sharing all of her info, obviously in the show notes and on our socials. Thank you so much, Haley.
Thank you.
Have a fabulous day. And I cannot wait to share more digestive enzymes with you in the future.
I am so excited that now I know I always have a backup when I'm out with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you soon.